So that's enough of that. But Taylor, the quote of the day is from Taylor's Miss Americana and the Heartbreak Prince. You play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. I actually like that. You play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. I don't know that she's the person that first said that.
No way.
No way, right?
Nope.
Right, but she definitely brought it to the masses of youngsters out there listening to Taylor Swift. And it's so true. I think she's singing about a relationship, but you can play stupid games. It actually leads me into really the meat of this episode, and I know we've probably gone on now for like an hour, which I was trying to. Well, we probably not done an hour. We're probably just under an hour, but I was trying to keep this podcast not super long. In fact, if you're listening in the car, good time to pause it and come back to the podcast later if you've got something going on. But I would never encourage you to have to listen to a 2-hour podcast at one time and sitting. So that's the good news. You can pause this and come back to it. But at any rate, we one of the things that I thought was interesting during this playoff series, there's a lot of controversy. Of Florida State didn't make it in. University of Georgia didn't make it in. Yeah. Georgia should have made it in. We had a great argument to be there. Many people could have. I could argue Georgia should have been there before Florida State. I could argue Florida State should have been there before Georgia or any of the teams. Essentially, I think it's a bogus championship this year. They should just vacate it. But that's just the way I feel about it. Yeah, they got totally cheated. 3 points shy of the SEC championship. It was very frustrating. I don't know what Nick paid those refs, but he's no longer here. I was talking about Michigan,
but they did too. So.
No, I've got it in common with the Auburn fans right now. I'm here for the downfall of the Crimson Tide. So, but and again, that may be an unpopular opinion to those friends of mine in Alabama.
What is the over under next year is 9.5 win total? I think for Alabama. I think that's what I saw. 9.5.
I don't know, man.
I think that's the over under.
Really.
Wow.
Well, look, they've won a lot, so it's time to move on. But the new sheriff in town, and so I was commenting to some people about the playoffs, and we're going back and forth, and I have a lot of friends that are Georgia Tech fans, and they love to talk about how close they were this season to like their team has really elevated, and they did close.
They got the new coach. They're actually throwing the ball. That's
they
difference.
are throwing the ball.
They're throwing the ball.
But I want to be clear. And I want to state this, and I realize this could come back to bite me, but honestly, I'm willing to say it. I'm willing to say it out loud. Look,
I know what you're
I'm willing to say it out loud. Here. Unpopular opinion.
Warning.
Now for a word of caution.
There's a warning. You got
Unpopular opinion.
He's crazy.
Jerk.
Yeah, so unpopular opinion, but I think it's popular with those dog fans is that in Kirby Smart's reign, however many years he has left, whether it's another hopefully 100 years he's got left at least. I'm going for 50 at least. But if he's got another decade, I am only going to say that there is a possibility that Georgia Tech may beat the University of Georgia maybe one more time.
in your lifetime.
In Kirby Smart's coaching lifetime.
His coaching lifetime.
Oh, I thought you were going somewhere else. No, I don't think that'll happen.
I don't even think they'll beat him again. I mean, Joe, what do you think?
It
I mean,
could be
it's
a fluke.
I mean, there's probably a fluke win out there, maybe
injury or something.
I mean, if the
there
stars
might be some
align,
crazy suspension or injury or
all their seniors stay, right, and they play in the Georgia Tech system for 4 years, maybe then, and we have a lot of injuries, and Kirby's on an off day, or something happens. Maybe. I mean, he did lose to them. Didn't he lose to them his first season? Did he lose to Georgia Tech? I think he lost. I think he has one L, and then after that, it's done. Yeah. Right. And part of it, and they were like, no, we're coming. Part of it's not fair, right? He's got an organization that really puts the money behind Kirby, so he's got the facilities. But that's what I want to talk about today, is because he's got a system in place. Kirby's got a system in place that's there. The school's behind him, the program's behind him. He's taking great coaches. He's put a system in place. And by the way, he's put a system in place. A lot of people think he game plans, a week in advance. Some people might be smart and say he game plans the season, all the way out. Or maybe he starts game planning in spring season, or maybe he starts game planning right after the bowl game. I bet you Kirby Smart has been game planning ever since he's known he's wanted to be a coach. He's been game planning. And he's been constantly game planning. And when you have a system like that you work in, you're going to constantly be turning out a product. And so I want to talk about a little bit about that game planning, and what it looks like to actually have a game plan. Here we are doing this podcast. I've been thinking about a podcast and been talking about it really since I did those interviews with those guys I mentored during the BLM days. People have been talking to me about a podcast, and I did some interviews with some interracial couples, and I didn't want to get pigeonholed into one trick pony sort of stuff. So I was like, what can I do that's presses the boundaries a little bit, pushes it outside. And it's taken me years to come around to an idea of what it want to look like. But the whole time I was taking notes and asking questions and who could we bring on and what are some guests that we're going to have on. And so that's really where this idea of what the hell do I know with JB? I mean, I don't want to take myself too seriously, and I don't know that I know anything. But you might have heard in this hour-long conversation something that's worth taking away. And one of them, I'd love to hear your take on it, but I don't care how young you are or how old you are, you ought to be game planning, right? You ought to be planning out your next move. I mean, those who are successful, to me, they write down their goal, right? And that doesn't mean the goal doesn't change. It doesn't mean it changes week to week, month to month, year to year. But you've got to write down a goal, right? I mean, what do you guys think?
Absolutely. And I think you're right. Kirby probably started doing that back before he knew he was going to be a head coach, and said, got some lofty goals, but I'm also going to work on the process. And once I have that in place, I'll reach them. And he has. Right. And I think that's the same thing for us in life. If you don't have something, then you got nothing. That's the way I look at it.
Absolutely. I mean, Juice, you didn't just start out doing photography. I mean, you had to put a plan together, right?
I took a long way to get to where I'm at. I took a long path. I didn't have any plans when I was young, in my 20s.
Right.
I kind of farted around, which it did make me who I was today. Sure. I grew up, I didn't have the best life growing up, so it just took me a lot to find out how to get to where I'm at now. But yeah, you definitely need to plan it out. It definitely helps you. Coming from somebody that didn't do it, it helps you to do it.
Yeah, so I mean, I think even if you're like 14 right now and you're sitting there going, like, if you're listening to this, which, by the way, I mean, you're not right. It's 25, but it doesn't matter, right? Yeah. I mean, you should be planning out, like, I want this, I want to go to college, or I want to, whatever. You should be planning. Write it down. Plan it out, and it's okay to change it, right? Yeah. I think that's what people think, is if they say they're going to be, a police officer when they're 7, then I've got to stick with that decision. No, you can change. I know people have changed careers in their 40s, and 50s even. Yeah. So, but you've got to have a plan, and otherwise you can't execute on that plan. Nathan, you just came back from wrestling. You were telling me how you guys had a whole plan of you were going to go down on Thursday, but you wanted to bring the kids back so they could sleep in their beds Thursday night and not do a hotel. Yeah. You game planned the tournament
the whole time. I mean, everything was scheduled, and you had a plan. I mean, you can't just go down there without a plan. No. Every coach had its plan. Every coach had a thing that we had to do. So, you got to plan. You got to plan it out. You can't just fly up out of the seat of your pants.
Just wing it. Just wing it.
Just wing it.
Yeah.
No.
Well, you're right. When you just wing it, you just kind of like floating in it like a rudder. You just rudderless. You just kicking waves. You're not going anywhere.
When you wing it, you don't have discipline, basically. And you have to have discipline to be successful.
Juice with the wisdom.
Hit my button, dog. Hit my button.
You gotta,
Oh, that's too long.
That's too long.
Yeah,
it's a good button though.
I need to cut it and just have it like he's good at poker.
The juice is worth the squeeze. Just have that on.
Oh, juice is worth the squeeze. He's been holding that one. He's been holding that one like a fart in school.
Oh man, juice box.
He's been holding the juice box.
Give me the
juice box.
That's right along with Titicaca.
Like Titicaca.
Oh man,
Nate's gonna giggle for a week on that one.
Yeah, he is.
I'm waiting for him to spill that all over himself. No, it's so good. You have to game plan. One of the things that I thought was really interesting. Some of you guys know like my wife and I, our story with her parents, and how in her mid 30s she was kind of an orphan, because her parents passed away really early, and they were our heroes really in business and in many parts of life, and they were kind of second parents to me, and great marriage. A pillar out there. Shout out to Dave and Elisa, and if you're listening to this and you know them, man, I hope you comment in the in a reel or whatever on the podcast, and give Dave and Lisa a shout out, because I firmly believe they're looking down and watching us. But when we were cleaning out Dave's desk after he passed away, and he passed away at 57 years old, it's way too young. But when he passed away, we were cleaning out his desk, and we went back to like the 80s-ish, right in there, that like mid-80s, that he did a net worth. Every year he had a net worth. And he would track it. At the end of every year, he'd put his assets minus his liabilities and start negative, And then that was kind of his goal. Like he had many goals, but those were one of them is I want to increase my net. So he'd write it down. Okay. And then the next year he'd work really hard and he'd write down his assets and then he'd write down his liabilities and he'd have his net worth for the next year. So, when he passed away in 2012, we had, years, decades of net worths that were written down in his desk that we pull out. And it was, to me, amazing to see that he had done that. So Danielle and I do that exercise as well. It's really a great exercise to kind of see where you are, where you've come from, and then start planning on where you're going. But, and if you're really old, some of you out there, you're like, it's past my prime, I'm settling down. But you got to game plan that, right? You've got wheels. You've got people that you need to figure out like how that's going to go. You need to game plan your retirement. You need to game plan where you are in your retirement. You start shifting and planning and doing all that. So you say, well, it's too late. Well, there's still things you can do. There's always things you can do to navigate those. So, that's the meat of it. And I'm going to finish with this and we're going to kind of close it up. But, so this is kind of our section. We're calling it Listen Up Kids. Listen Up Kids is we're going to take it all and we're going to put it in a ball of wax. That if you didn't listen to anything, this is where I would tell you to turn the volume up a little bit, because this is where you want to listen to. Life is a journey. I know you've seen it on a poster somewhere that it's not a destination, it's a journey. It's so true. There was this church I went to, and this pastor used to speak. He would say that there are 3 stages of life. You're either in a problem, going out of problem, or coming into a problem. Those are the 3 stages of life. And in a lot of ways, there's so much truth to that.
Yeah.
Right? Because life's just a journey, and if you think you've all got it figured out, it's going to wallop you on the head, and you're not. And you've got to adjust, and you've got to shift, and you've got to make that new game plan. You got to tweak that game plan, constantly look at it. Is it still working? Is it still achievable? Or do I not like those dreams anymore? Do I need to have some new dreams and reassess and readdress? And so I want to encourage you, wherever you are in your life today, to just stop for a second and think about what is your game plan for tomorrow or for next month or next year, and then execute on that plan. So that's the Listen Up Kids section of today and how we'll finish this podcast. Next month, we're going to do a monthly podcast. If we get more than 6 listeners, maybe we'll do like every 3 weeks. And then if we get like 50, maybe we'll do every other week. I don't know. So we'll, more people listening, the more we can ramp it up. But I think I've enjoyed this.
Yeah, it was fun.
It's good. What about you guys? Yeah, it's good to talk about. Good to laugh. Good to get together. Next week though, keep saying next month's podcast.
Next podcast. Yeah.
Next podcast. Doesn't matter whenever we release it. Next podcast. Yeah. Next podcast. We are going to have the great, the one and only Cindy Cole. Cindy Cole. So, Joe, you will love to have Cindy on. She is also a broker as well down here, and has been, and she is legit.
Yeah,
broker, Joe. Not that you're legit. You're definitely legit. But the other thing I'm really looking forward to is Cindy.
Too legit.
Well, Cindy has wisdom, more wisdom than all of us put together. And here's the other thing: is while we're having fun and we're dudes and we're hanging out, we're missing a female perspective, and that's like half the population. Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to having Cindy in, and she'll be in studio, so that'll be great. I think Joe, you're going to be on in studio next time, so that'll be great. So we'll have you in. We'll get Nate down too. So that will be our next podcast. We'll be covering the topic of what is it like to live life with integrity in business. So that'll be a great one. I'm really looking forward to have that one. But thanks so much for listening, and I hope that you will like, subscribe, comment, share, do all the things, or don't. What the hell do we know?
You've been listening to What the Hell Do I Know with JB. JB has worn quite a few hats. CEO, venture investor, accidental pastor of a downtown Atlanta church, board member, passive investor, and occasional public speaker. JB's passion with his show is sharing the good, the bad, and the downright absurd. Life's a mixture, right? JB has picked up some real gems along this journey. Lessons from the business world, the chaos of parenting, and the surprises of accidental leadership. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find Jason on Instagram at _Jason_Becker. Y'all be cool, and we'll see you next time.